Hi there, welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions. I'm Danny Flexen. I'm here every Monday 4:30 PM to talk about the boxing action of the weekend just gone. And if you don't already know the big news of the weekend, then you can't truly class yourself as a boxing fan, as we have a new WBC heavyweight champion, a new consensus heavyweight #1, and probably a new top 5 entrant in the pound for pound rankings all in one night. And that's from Tyson Fury's dominant, exciting and explosive victory over Deontay Wilder in Las Vegas on Saturday night. Coming off their contentious draw back in December 2018. People were split. Some thought Wilder would finally catch up to Fury, having dropped him twice in their first fight. Whereas others thought Fury this time would be a bit more careful and cruise his way to the points victory he perhaps should have been awarded first time around. Well, as it turned out, neither of those schools of thoughts were correct, and Fury wasn't lying when he said he was going to fight aggressively and close Wilder down. As it turned out, Fury did just that, dominating pretty much every round, dropping Wilder twice before the towel came in from Wilder's corner. Signs of jubilation from there on in from Fury, his team and fan base. And it was just an incredible performance. Fury was on the front foot from the start, kept Wilder guessing and threw more shots than his usual, mixed it up nicely as well, head and body, straight shots to the head, hooks to the body, and worked hard in the clinches too. A little bit of dirty boxing, I guess you call it, in the clinches too, but nothing that saw the referee get too annoyed in terms of infractions, although he did ultimately dock a point from Fury for pushing the head down at one point. But it mattered for nothing. He was well ahead on the cards, and it was different from Wilder's recent rematch with Lewis Ortiz, where he was outboxed for several rounds before finding the finishing punch. This wasn't Wilder kind of prowling despite being a mile behind. This was Wilder on the back foot, both literally and figuratively, not really knowing what was going on. And from about round 5 onwards, he seemed a bit, not just in awe, but a bit not quite with it, a bit spaced out. And although I believe in the post-fight, his trainer, Jay Diaz, questioned the decision of his assistant, Mark Breland, to throw the towel in, I don't think there can be any doubt. I think if anything, it could have come in earlier. Fury was so dominant. Wilder had a cut mouth, blood coming from a cut inside the ear also. He'd been battered. But more than that, he had a forlorn look about him. He didn't seem to know how to get back in the fight. It wasn't this belief in his punch that he always kept, that he knew he was going to get to Fury in the end. It was more just a dogged refusal to quit. And he said afterwards, I wanted to go out on my shield. But that's why we have trainers, to protect fighters from themselves. Wilder's still young enough and dangerous enough to come again. But on this night, Fury looked unbeatable, certainly by any heavyweights of the current era. And I mean no disrespect to the likes of Anthony Joshua when I say that. But his timing, his accuracy, his tactics, they were all spot on. And he was so focused. Even when it resembled a procession by rounds 4 or 5, he never got cocky. He never showboated in the way the Fury of old would have. He stayed focused. He had the keen eye. You could tell, laser focus for the whole fight, right up until the end when he could finally release and celebrate. Credit too, of course, goes to Sugar Hill Stewart, who came in just for this fight, and we don't know if he's going to continue in Fury's corner going forward. His uncle, Emmanuel Stewart, the late great Emmanuel Stewart, of course, was known in the later part of his career for being a bit of a hired gun and someone who came in for the big fights. And his nephew did him proud, fulfilling what could turn out to be a similar role for Fury against Wilder. Credit obviously has to go to Fury himself. While we look at the guys that have trained him in the past, Hughie Fury, his uncle initially, and his dad John, of course. Peter Fury, who really moulded him and took him to that famous victory out in Dusseldorf over Vladimir Klitschko. And then Ben Davison, of course, who took Fury, or helped Fury, back from the brink when he blew up way over 400 pounds, had problems with mental health, cocaine, of course, drinking too much. And Fury's family obviously had a say in that as well, as did the man himself, showing incredible fortitude to come back from such a low ebb. But Ben Davison was with him all the way through, and he took Fury back to the brink of this success. And then Sugar Hill Stewart obviously carried him over the line. Fury's had so many problems in his up and down career as someone of his character. It's not really a surprise. But to come back from that victory over Klitschko, the failed drug test, of course, the cocaine problems, the weight gain, the weight loss, all the things that have happened to him, all the controversy, 2.5-year hiatus as well, out of the ring, came back, still looked rusty at first, fought to that draw of Wilder, which really should have been a win, didn't let that dishearten him. If anything, it made his resolve even stronger. Came back with 2 more comeback wins. Looked a bit shaky in the last one against Otto Varling. Suffered a terrible cut as well. People were unsure whether his skin was going to hold up against Wilder. Was it too soon? And just, yeah, I can see why some people bet on Wilder. I predicted Fury points, which obviously was only half right. So I'm not going to take too much credit for that. But just an incredible performance. I didn't think for a second that he would be as aggressive as he was. But it was a joy to see. And even being aggressive, he didn't leave himself open enough for Wilder to catch him. He hardly took a clean shot throughout the fight. And Wilder is, of course, one of the most dangerous men of any weight in boxing. Fury, for someone who was ringside, not just for his first pro fight in Nottingham Arena on the undercard of Carl Froch against Jean Pascal back in 2008, but also 4 of his first 6 fights I watched at ringside. Back in the Boxing News days, I covered a lot of the Hennessy sports shows. What that says about where I was allocated, think what you will, do you know what I mean? But I was lucky enough to see Fury emerge. A lot different from the fighter he is now and a lot different from the man he is now. But it's been a pleasure, for the most part, to document the journey, and just incredible performance on Saturday night. And where he goes from here is anyone's guess. I would hope an undisputed unification with Anthony Joshua, or British fight, could be one of the biggest British fights ever. Hopefully will take place later this year. But what we can say, or at least what I can say, because it's my opinion, I would say Fury's the best British boxer based on accomplishments, results and performances in the last 15 years. So since Lennox Lewis retired, basically. I put him above, after Saturday night's performance, I put him above Joe Calzaghe, who I have a huge amount of respect for, and Ricky Hatton, who I followed for his entire career and really, really enjoyed watching. I think Fury's just done that bit more in terms of beating top opposition, and certainly in the case of Klitschko when he was at his absolute peak. And even Wilder had never lost before. He knocked out everyone he faced. You know, even Stiverne, who was the only man that took him the distance, knocked him out in the rematch. And the only person he hasn't been able to stop is, of course, Fury. So just, yeah, best British boxer of the past 15 years for me, and the 2 best British overseas performances of any weight of the last 15 years as well. So all you can do is take your hat off to the Gypsy King. Now, I could talk about Fury for another 10 minutes quite easily, but there was some other action over the weekend that I should quickly round up. On Saturday night, leading into the Fury pay-per-view, there was a show at York Hall in Bethnal Green, which saw Brad Foster beat Lucian Reid in their rematch for the British and Commonwealth Super Bantamweight titles. Incredibly impressive performance. Stopped him, I think it was round 6, I'd have to double check, but a draw the first time around. Reid looked unlucky, most people had him ahead, so real redemption there for Foster. And not only that, we saw an upset, and probably Reid, I think, was the betting favourite for that, so 2 upsets really in the top 2 fights, as Umar Sadiq rebounded from his loss to Zach Chelly not too long ago and defeated Cody Davis after the pair had their kind of altercation at the press conference, kept it a bit more civil at the weigh-in, and then in the ring, Sadiq was for the most part in charge and outpointed Davis. So fair play to him. Davis is still young and talented enough to come back though, so that's good to know. On Friday night, also at York Hall, we saw the semi-finals of the MTK Golden Contract Tournament. Best domestic show of the year so far on paper, and as it turned out in practice. O'Hara Davis got past a surprisingly spirited Jeff Ofori, but class told in the end. And Tyrone McKenna took a highly controversial decision over Mohamed Mimoun, who looked incredibly hard done by, but now everyone does get to see the light welterweight or super lightweight final that a lot of people wanted, the grudge match between Davis and McKenna. In the 162, no, I don't think so, 126 pound division, featherweight, we saw Ryan Walsh come through a potentially tricky tie against Tyrone McCullough, getting to him in the end and getting him and winning on points. I thought he was going to stop him towards the end, but just missed out on that $7.5 grand knockout bonus. But a very slippery Tyrone McKenna, who had a good first 4 rounds, but Walsh gradually worked him out and then ground him down, and was a well-worthy winner at the end. And in the other one, the one that everyone was anticipating, and the nominal main event on the evening, we saw Jazza Dickens put up a great display to get past Lee Wood, the Commonwealth champion, and go into the final against Walsh. The 2 finals I'm really looking forward to, particularly because I'm not sure McKenna really did enough to book his place in the final, the featherweight final between Jazza Dickens and Ryan Walsh. And the winner of that has certainly got a platform and, of course, a promotional contract to go further. But all of that, and it was a great boxing weekend, it truly belongs to Tyson Fury. Nothing more I can say that hasn't already been said, really, but just it's been a pleasure to watch him, and I'm so glad that he's finally shown what a lot of doubters considered unproven over the years, in that, you know, he's talked a good game, he's always looked talented, but he's only had that one big win over Klitschko and then he fell apart and disappeared. Well, now he's got another huge win to add to it, and it's a great resume, and it's still only just beginning. He's still quite young in heavyweight terms. So let's see if this time around he can add to that legacy. Love to know your thoughts below, particularly on Fury. How impressed you were with his performance, what you'd like to see him to do next. Will we keep Sugar Hill Stewart as his trainer? If not, who should he go with next, or who should he go back to if you feel a reunion with one of his former trainers should be on the cards? Let me know what you think below and I'll respond to some of the comments. I'll be back next week, Monday, for ReFLEXions, 4:30 p.m. and also this Thursday for FlexPectations, looking ahead to Jesse Vargas and Mikey Garcia, among other things, at the weekend, 4:30 p.m. on Thursday. Thanks as ever for your time, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.